Hit it.
Alright, let's see. 6,600 miles. Ready?
Hang on, do you have the spark plug for them?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's going on, YouTube? This is going to be part 2 of the Hammer 1275 install, and so we've actually got it completed. So I'm going to take you through real quick. So important thing is, once you have finished your install, you know, you've got your heads back together, you got your entire top end back together, you got your pipes back together. If you buy this kit through Hammer, they are going to send you this DynoJet Power Vision tuner. So right now I just have it plugged into the ECU. I haven't actually put it together. I haven't installed it per se. They're going to send you that, and it's not going to have a tune on it. The reason for that is that this will actually pull the stock tune off of the bike. So you'll want to do that before you disassemble the bike. You'll want to start the ignition on, but not turn the bike on. And then you'll want to go in to your tuner. Once you have your stock tune pulled from the bike and it's on your Power Vision, you'll want to go onto your computer and download the WinPV application from DynoJet, so you can actually load the tune from the Power Vision onto the computer, and you can send it to Hammer. And you'll want to tell them what pipes you have. So for me, I have the Vance & Hines short shots, and you'll want to tell them what air cleaner you've got. So I'm just using the Screaming Eagle round high flow air performance, or high flow air cleaner kit. So you'll want to tell them that so they can better tune your motorcycle. And then for me, they got it back to me within 12 hours. So I would recommend doing that before you start your teardown, so that way once you're done you can just load it up, no problem. So then once you do that, you will flash it back onto your ECU while leaving the copy of the original in one of the slots. You don't want to overwrite that, because then it's lost forever. And you don't want that in case you ever, for whatever reason, need to turn it back to stock. So that is very important to keep. And then once you have it back together like we do, or like I do, you want to start with your heat cycles. And mainly that is so you're kind of working oil through the system. You're not putting too much pressure on the cylinders and the new pistons and all that without oil. This is just kind of to break it in a little bit, to get a little bit of that piston start wearing on the new cylinders, because it's not perfectly round. So you want to break that piston into the cylinders themselves so they can actually seat better and you're not rubbing. So far, I've done the 20-second heat cycle. That's your first one, and then you let it cool to room temperature. Then you repeat with a 30-second heat cycle and let it cool to room temperature. So I've done that so far, and this is pretty cold. I mean, it is 70 degrees outside, and it's sitting in an open garage, so that feels at least that cold. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the 40-second heat cycle, and you guys can actually hear this kit start up for the very first time. Okay, so that would be the 40-second heat cycle. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but it was actually smoking right there around the heads. And that is normal if you have spilled oil, which we actually spilled a lot of oil and a lot of assembly lube. So that is just the excess oil burning off. It's nothing huge. So we're actually going to, after we do the heat cycles each time, personally, I would like to check for oil leaks, any new leaks that have developed, which don't see any. You want to check your oil level after each time. I don't see any oil leaks anywhere, except for a little bit right there, but I think that might have already been there. I believe that was already there. So not too worried about that. But it's definitely something we want to check. Don't see any fresh oil. So that's good. We're going to go ahead and check this. So that's a little bit closer to maybe needing a little bit of oil, but that's fine. We can add a little bit if we need to, but right now I want to keep it how it is. And the reason, especially if you're doing an oil cooler like we did, it's right there. So if you've done one of those, you're going to add a little bit of extra oil volume, and so your stock, whatever you normally fill it up to, is going to need to be a little bit extra. Just keep in mind that when you do drain the oil out of your bike, make sure it is really hot, so you're actually getting as much oil out of there as possible, so you're not running old oil mixed with new when you change the fluids. And so after this break-in cycle at 500 miles, I need to completely drain the oil, the engine oil, and the primary fluid out, because with the new clutch and obviously the new cylinders, there's going to be a lot of extra metal shavings. It's basically a brand new fucking engine, so just treat it how you did when you bought it from the factory. No getting on it super high revs, whatever, what have you. So per Hammer's instructions, the next step would be to take it out on the road for a mile, bring it back, let it cool to room temperature, and then after that do 20 miles. So as you can see, it's wet out there. I'm not going out there on wet roads right now. So I'm going to leave this for tomorrow, and then we will do the 1 mile ride, and then we'll let it cool to room temperature, and then we'll do the 20-mile ride. And then after that is when I can throw the auto tune session on the Dyno Vision, or DynoJet Power Vision, and then we will start to see the engine idle even out a little bit, and we'll see better numbers across the board as far as our power band. That will be tomorrow, and I've done the heat cycles for tonight, so I'm going to leave it until tomorrow. So see you then. Okay, it is another day, and we are getting ready to go on the 1 mile heat cycle. So the last thing we did was the 40-second heat cycle, and that was last night. So the roads have dried up a bit today, so we're going to go ahead and do the 1 mile heat cycle. I'm just going to go around the block pretty much, hopefully not run into any oil leaks or any problems. Now that we have started to idle down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the garage. Wow, that was barely any throttle. Normally I had to get it wide open to get it out of there. All right, and we are moving. It's moving on its own power. Look at that. All right, here we go. Now they said don't go over 2,500 RPM until you're after 50 miles of the break-in cycle. Man, that clutch is heavy. All right. Go switch back to our odometer here. All right, this feels good. I'm barely on, like, I don't even think I'm an eighth of an inch on the throttle, and we're just cruising. I really don't want this clutch cable to melt. I hope it doesn't get too hot. All right, we are at 3/10 of a mile. So far, everything feels good. I'm not seeing any oil pouring out from the road behind me. Do a little U-ey here. Yeah, it's really hard not to go over the 2,500 RPM limit because it's so easy to rev this thing now because of the extra bore. Oh, what is that? Trash? Yuck. Yeah, it's running so rich now that it just, as soon as I let off the throttle, it just pops and bangs. Afraid to brap it a little bit. All right, we're about at a mile, so I'm gonna hopefully get back home without too much trouble. Wow. No lug at all, even at this low RPM. Sounds like a machine gun going off. Ah, shit. All right, and we are back at the homestead here, and just gonna cruise into the driveway and shut her off. All right, in neutral, kickstand, and off. Yep, we're dry. Okay, that was my biggest concern, and we're dry. Just a little bit of road grime underneath of that. Don't see anything here. Looks like we are good to go. We'll let it sit. Hopefully it doesn't drip anymore while we're sitting here, and I will resume when we are going to go on the next phase, which is after this cools down back to the ambient air temperature. We can ride it for good, but we can't go above 2,500 RPM until we hit that 50-mile zone. And then we can go to 35. So we got a little bit of room to play with for now, but then we can really open it up a little bit more, and then once we hit that 500 mile, change the fluids, and then we will be good to go as far as hitting our auto-tuned fuel cells and all of that stuff. So I'll see you back here in a minute. Hello everybody, and welcome back. So right now I have an oil pressure light sensor, which I think is the connection, because you have to remove it and rewire the oil pressure switch. So I think the connection is bad because it wasn't on before, and when I turned the bike back on, the oil pressure light came on. But you know, the problem is that I mean I have oil, it's within the fill lines, like it's not low and it's not high. I don't have oil leaking anywhere. So I mean, I think it's just the connection, because I tried to wiggle it and it like bounced around a little bit, so I'm just going to assume it's the connection, because I've checked it twice and the oil level has stayed the same before and after the ride. So I mean, it's whatever, I don't know. I can try and remove it and rewire it. Hopefully that'll fix it, but I don't really know. So now I am at 29 miles. So I could, even though I'm riding right now, I could theoretically start the auto tune process and then it would actually start correcting the super rich fuel cells, which came on the tune that Hammer sent me. So that would be fixed, or it would start fixing it. And then once I get past 50 miles on this new engine, then I can start getting into the little bit higher revs. Instead of 2,500 as my limit, I can do 3,500 as my limit. And then between 50 and 250, I want to keep that 3,500 roughly. But right now I am barely a quarter, like not even a quarter on the throttle. I'm maybe like an eighth turn, and I'm just cruising. Like, it requires very little effort to move this motorcycle now, which is great. I love it. Before I'd have to cruise it like maybe half throttle if I wanted to stay up to speed. So I'm on my way to eat, so we'll just sit back here and enjoy the ride. F-150 right there. All right, here we go. Damn, keep over revving it when I downshift. I'm not trying to, but quit. I hate these blinkers because you don't think they turn off and then you hit the button and then they come back on. Wow. That's where I wanted to go to eat, but they look awful busy. All right, here we are. All right, I will see you guys after I'm done eating. So I diagnosed the oil pressure light. What happened was I wasn't paying attention when I routed the wire, and it got pinched between the oil flow line, the new one, the metal one, and between that and the sensor. So, but with that, it couldn't get enough voltage to actually register that I had oil pressure. So I basically just pulled the wire off and got it unstuck, and then the light went off. Now that I'm starting to get a little bit more miles on this, it's starting to run a little better. I love these night rides, especially when the weather's nice, it's not too hot. It's so nice.